yourself a law degree, congratulations, and welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers work in their gift and live their passions. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, insight, skills, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. Ever since I started this podcast, I kept hearing about this other happy lawyer, and after doing a little bit of research, it turns out that on the other side of the globe, Clarissa Rayward was working on a similar mission of promoting happiness for lawyers. Based in Australia, Clarissa runs her own family law firm, but she's also a speaker, podcaster, and author. Her book, Happy Lawyer, Happy Life, is for lawyers who want to live the happiest life they can while enjoying all that brought them into the law in the first place. As you can imagine, I was thrilled to get her on the show. So let's get to it. Welcome, Clarissa. I am so excited to introduce you to my audience today. You're somebody that I've been really looking forward to interviewing because I know that we share a lot of the same inspiration and goals in the legal community. So could you please just introduce yourself and let my listeners know a little bit about what you do and how you got to be where you are today?
So thank you so much for having me. And I agree. I think the two of us are very much on the same page when it comes to law and happiness and all the stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm obviously Clarissa Rayward. I'm a family lawyer over in Brisbane, Australia. And I run a law firm here called Brisbane Family Law Centre. But I'm probably best known in the online community as the Happy Family Lawyer, which is a crazy name I gave to myself about 3 years ago when I wasn't particularly happy. And that's really my blog. And that's really, I guess, how I've sort of started to grow a profile over here now, is as the mostly happy family lawyer is what I'll call myself.
And that's fair. I mean, no one's expected to be happy all the time. I think if that's the goal, then we're all going to fall a little short. But actually, I stumbled across you the very first time because you were the only other person using the hashtag Happy Lawyer.
Happy Lawyer. I'm the only one in the world.
Yeah, I was like on Instagram, I was like, there's only one other person using this hashtag? That can't be right. And there you were.
Apparently.
You just kept coming up when I was talking to people. So I was like, I have to find this person. So here you are. And the thing I was really excited to chat with you about today is you have these 5 habits, I guess you call them, of the happy lawyer. And I would love for you to explain a little bit more about those and share those with the listeners today.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess it's part of my own sort of happiness journey, as much as I don't always love the word journey. I really, 3 years ago, was not in a great place, and I was really questioning why I was doing law and whether I wanted to keep being a lawyer, and was really starting to look at whether this career was for me. And as a part of that, there are many things that I really love about law and the job that we all get to do and the way that I get to do it. And part of, I guess, the process I went through myself was to really think and remind myself about the good reasons that I do the job that I do, or the great things that come from it. And as I started to pay more attention to the good stuff and try and move away from the negative stuff, I started to see myself enjoying my work more, being happier, all of these things. And I started writing about that experience. And then this year I decided to, I guess, take my own sort of learnings and writing and put all of that together into a bit of a book. And so in doing so, I started to speak to other lawyers and go, well, you know, you seem to me from the outside to be a pretty happy lawyer. What do you do? How do you maintain happiness in a career that can be stressful, that's demanding, that doesn't always give us the best work-life balance, all of these things? How do you do it? And so I started to ask a lot of questions. I did a lot of research and distilled it down into something that for me was really easy to recite and remember, which is, my 5 traits of a happy lawyer, which surprisingly go with the word happy. So for me, it's being healthy, it's having a positive attitude, it's having passion in your life, which largely has nothing to do with law. So just stuff that you love to do, that we're all different in that space. But for me, it's dancing. I just love to dance. And so working that into my life, being clear about your purpose. So being clear about why you're doing the job that you're doing and why you came into law in the first place, and connecting back to that as much as you can, because when you're getting buried under emails or documents or litigation or whatever it is that you do in this field, it can be really hard to connect back with the reason you came here in the first place. And then finally, for me, why is about being yourself. I think law is a tricky area. It's one where there are a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of things that we're told we should do. And I think sometimes it can be hard to live with those stereotypes. So for me, again, being yourself, being authentic to yourself is a key to being happy.
There's literally so much in there that we have to talk about.
It was like, I should stop talking.
No, first I would be interested in starting with kind of at the beginning of your journey. You said that you sat and you thought about how the things you liked about the law and you were kind of intentional around that. What kind of things came up for you in that process?
Yeah, so I'm a divorce lawyer. So for me, the bit that I love in the work that I get to do is the people. I love working with people. And as a divorce lawyer, I see people in often one of the worst situations in their life that they will ever experience. And as a result, I consider myself incredibly privileged to work with other people through that process. They're often not in the great headspace. They're often really hard to work with because, I mean, I know myself, if I was going through a marriage breakdown, I'd probably be a pretty nightmarish client. I can't imagine I'd be calm and considered and, all of these great things. I think I'd be a heartbroken human being that was going through grief and I'd be up and down like a yo-yo. What you see as a divorce lawyer with the clients that you work with is that you do tend to work them through that really difficult stage. And I guess I'm lucky. I get to hear from clients a year down the track or 2 years down the track when they've rebuilt their lives and their lives are going in a different way, but a great way. And so to be a part of that process of helping someone through that really hard stage in their life and then potentially to see the benefits later on is incredibly powerful. And it is, I just think, something that we're so privileged to be able to do. That's what brought me to this stuff in the beginning. That's the stuff I love doing. But it is easy to lose sight of that, particularly when you start running your own business, you start employing team members, you've suddenly got all these extra stresses that are going on. And the core of what brought you to law in the first place starts to sort of get right down the bottom of the list because there's all this other stuff going on. And then add parenting to all of that many of us are trying to juggle as well. And I really was just losing sight with what it was that I loved.
It can be so challenging, I think, to get stuck doing the tasks of being a lawyer and not really understanding the bigger picture of the service that you're providing.
Completely agree with that.
I think that a lot of, especially junior lawyers, get stuck in that place coming out of school, which is really task-oriented, and you kind of get the reward from doing the task well. And I think that at least in the US, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I think that in the US, a lot of people lose the love of learning and kind of gain the love of accomplishment.
Yes, I agree so much with that. Something that I was discussing with one of my guests on my podcast last week or the week before is that I think certainly in this day and age anyway, and I feel like I was probably one of these people as well. In your 20s, which most people are when they're at law school, it seems to be such a decade of I've got to do this thing to get to the next step. So I've got to get through my degree or finish law school in your case so that I can get the job. And then once I get the job, then I do the next thing and I become an associate and then I become a senior associate and then I become a partner and then my life's made. Without pausing and just going, hang on a second, I should actually just be enjoying the moment that I'm living. I should just be, as you say, just learning. I should just be curious about my life because this is the only time in my life that I'm going to be 22 or 23 or 19 or whatever it is. And there's so many great things that are happening around me that if I become so focused on the prize, it's really problematic. I think the other thing that happens is that certainly as a student, both at high school and then for you college, for us university, you do get rewarded for achieving the prize. You either get certificates or whatever it is. There's all these great things that come to you when you win prizes. You come into the workplace and the prizes tend to disappear. There's no longer this sense of, you did that really well. Here's a ribbon to say congratulations. It's like, yeah, that's your job. Hurry up, move along, next thing. And so I think it can be quite confusing and almost disillusioning for people who generally, lawyers are successful, intelligent people who've been high achievers both at school and at college. They suddenly move into the workplace and everyone around them is exactly the same and no longer interested whether they did it in a way that should deserve the prize or not. And I think those first couple of years, therefore, can be really challenging because you can't come out as a first-year lawyer and be Aaron Brockovich. Now, you just can't. I mean, if you can, then please tell me how. But I just don't think you can. And you've got to learn your trade. And the trade that we're all in, we're going to be learning our whole careers. Like I am still now 16 years out learning every day new stuff, which is the best bit. That's a great thing. That's not a bad thing. That's an awesome thing. And I think sometimes as a newer, younger lawyer, it wouldn't be a bad thing to just slow down. We all go at our own pace. We'll all get to whatever prize we think is the right prize for us at the end of the day. But if we're so busy chasing prizes, we're sort of missing life in the middle of it all.
Oh my gosh. The whole idea of like a more mindful practice, I think is so important and so missing in the legal field. Because especially here in the US where we have that extra law school component. So by the time you come out, you kind of are like in your mid-20s, having had your entire life be set by a school schedule.
Yes.
You know, where you come in the first day and you have a clear agenda. There's a clear like metric for how you're going to be assessed. You know what's going to be on the test. You know how you did. On top of that, lawyers are not great at giving feedback.
Or that we're very good at giving feedback to other people. Particularly negative feedback. We're very bad at receiving feedback.
Well, also true. Well, I haven't found that lawyers are that good at giving constructive feedback.
I agree entirely. Yes.
So I think that lawyers who are, you come out of this situation where you're the top of your class and then you get no positive feedback, really. You know, if you do a good job, you get more work. That's the positive feedback.
Yeah.
And if you do a bad job, you sure as hell are going to know it.
Yeah.
And it can be really damaging to somebody's sense of self if what they were looking for was the pat on the back, as opposed to the learning opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I don't have the answer to that. And I think we hear a little bit about millennials and the different generations and the different expectations and all of these things. For me, I guess where I focus myself is on myself. And if I'm proud of what I'm doing, if I feel like I'm doing a good job, yes, I will always take on feedback, but I'll pause and just reflect and think, well, who is this person giving me this information? Where do they fit in my spectrum of people that I respect? That, you know, do they know more than me? Whatever it is, why are they giving me this feedback? What's the learning and what do I take from that? So by no means ignoring it, but just always pausing and trying to put it in context and thinking about it. I think too, as you know, I'm a boss, I run a team here. I've got a team of many lawyers, some of whom are quite young. I do try and be mindful of the feedback that I'm giving and the way I'm giving it. And sometimes just having a conversation with the people that you work with around how do you want to be rewarded? How do you want to be acknowledged? What is important to you? Because certainly in my office, my team are not at all interested in financial reward. I tried a system in here earlier this year that had financial bonuses for certain things. No one was enthused by that at all. It just did nothing for them. So I literally had to sit them all down and say, okay, this clearly doesn't work. Like what inspiration, what for you guys would work so that you do feel like you're getting acknowledged for that extra effort or whatever's going on. And we're all different in that sense. So sometimes just opening up that dialogue is really powerful. Very hard to do when you've been working with someone and you're 25 and, you know, you largely know nothing and you've been there for 10 minutes going in and saying, I'd like to talk about how you're going to acknowledge and reward me for the great things that I'm going to do. So, you know, I'm probably being a little bit optimistic in some stretches, but I think you can really be mindful about how you work as a person, no matter where you are in your career, no matter what job you're doing. And we're seeing so much work in the mindfulness space at the moment. It's such a helpful area that's developing. And it's something that I think our profession really could learn so much from and embrace in a much better way than we have been.
To be honest with you, I don't think the hard part would be for the 25-year-old to have the conversation. I honestly think the average 25-year-old doesn't even know how they want to be rewarded.
Yeah.
So like, even if they had somebody to have the conversation with, they wouldn't even know what to say because I don't know that people are having those conversations with themselves.
Yeah.
Because they've always known what the reward is and decided they do or do not want that reward.
Yeah. Yeah. Chase it or not. So true.
So let's get back to these 5 traits because I'm especially interested in how people can figure these things out because I don't know that people necessarily know what they want because they kind of have decided what they want based on what's been told is societally desirable.
Yes.
So when you talk about being healthy, I know right now there's a huge movement to increase sleep and people talk about drinking water and people talk about, you know, exercise. And what exactly do you think should be the basis, like the very least you could do to be considered healthy as a lawyer?
Healthy, yeah. So it is all of those things you've said. For me, health really is a word that encompasses 3 key areas. And the first is moving, is exercising. The second for me is having a healthy diet. As much as we hate harping on about that stuff, that just means eating, you know, actual raw food, not stuff in bags that comes in all shapes, sizes and colors. So having like a nice balanced diet. Imagine chocolate for me is still very much a part of that conversation though. And then rest is your other big part of that. We're all different as people, but when it comes to health, and if you ever catch an aeroplane and the attendants are doing that sort of thing that they do where they tell us to put our iPhones down and pay attention to the safety message, and they always say, fit your own mask first before helping anyone around you. And this is the same thing with health. If you are not healthy, if anyone listening has had a serious health issue, or not even a serious health issue, you've just been that sick that you couldn't get out of bed for 2 days, you know that you can't do anything else. You can't think. You can't care for the people around you. You certainly can't do your work as a lawyer, which requires your brain to be completely on target all the time. So the minute we let our health slip, everything else is going to slip, and you're going to struggle to be a happy person, to be frank. So for me, it's the starting point, it's the cornerstone, it's the key to the whole thing, but we're all different in terms of what makes us healthy. Some people that I know, some lawyers that I know particularly, are triathletes. They run marathons. They're insane in terms of their exercise regime. That's not me. Like I can't do that. I'd love to say that I could, but I can't. But for me, what I try and do is some form of movement every single day. And sometimes that's as simple as standing at my desk instead of sitting, because for whatever reason, I can't get out today to go for a run or whatever I want to do. So I literally stand at my desk, or just dancing like a goofball in my kitchen. That's moving, that's exercising, that's doing something. And the problem with the practice of law is it's a sedentary thing. You will find yourself sitting at your desk for really long periods of time without even realizing that's what you're doing. So something as simple as stacking some books up, putting your computer on top of them and standing for a day, it's worth trying. It makes such a difference to how your brain works. Eating well, essential, and we can all do that. The problem I find for lawyers, it's not that they don't want to eat well, it's again that time gets away from them. They're too busy. They don't plan. We don't think ahead. We suddenly get to lunchtime. We've got no lunch. Oh gosh, quick, takeaway down the road. And before you know it, you're doing that, 5 days a week, and you're doing it at night, and you're working late, and you're not eating properly. So it is about just pausing and being a little bit more organized and thinking ahead and putting in place a bit of structure and systems around making sure that you're getting good food. I use the analogy in my book that if you're a race car, and if literally if you're a Porsche, I presume you don't fill a Porsche with dodgy, cheap, bad fuel. I presume, I've never driven a Porsche and I don't own one. I presume if you did, you would probably buy some sort of amazing race fuel that makes your car go really fast. We are the same. And if you fill your body with stuff that's just not good for you, then you're really going to struggle to think well. So we've got to do this. It doesn't mean you need to become a, fitness fanatic. If you are, great. But you just need to pause and think, if I'm going to eat this not so great food right now, then my brain probably isn't going to work that well later on today. And that may not be ideal given the sort of work that I have to do. And then rest, of course, as you said, there's so many studies coming out about the impact of lack of sleep, again, on our brains in terms of the stress that we suffer, all of these things. And anyone who's had a child and has had to live through the first 12 months of having a baby in their house knows the impact of lack of sleep. It sends you crazy. So it's the same thing. Like, we've got to get ourselves to bed early, try and get routines around going to sleep in the same way that we do for kids, not working till all hours of the evening, getting off our devices, shutting them down so that we're resting, because again, our bodies and our brains just can't work otherwise.
I have to admit that this one is probably the one that I'm the worst at. I like every single thing you say, I don't do. I rarely move. I have eating habits of a 10-year-old boy, and I have 2 children under the age of 3. So sleep is this concept I've heard of, but it's been so long that it's not even worth thinking about at this point. I mean, I am one of those people, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't even know anymore, who doesn't need that much sleep. So there are many of us that don't need 8 to 10 hours sleep. And if that's you, then kudos to you. But I'd still say to you, with 2 young children, that's probably having a pretty big impact on your lack of sleep, I expect. Yeah, no, definitely. I always wonder how much more I could accomplish if I was actually sleeping. It would be. Yeah. I mean, the world better watch out for when I get my first 8 hours.
That's it. You'd be like, wow.
So this next trait is the one I'm really excited about, because it, for me, changed my life. It gave immediate results. And that's having a positive attitude and, kind of all that research about positive psychology or manifesting or intention setting or whatever you want to call it. I guess, how did that come about for you, and how do you use it in your practice?
Yeah. So I think it came about, to be frank, by chance, which was me that night sitting down, realizing that I was deeply unhappy, questioning why I was doing what I was doing, and jumping onto WordPress and starting a blog called The Happy Family Lawyer with no thought whatsoever other than I saw the domain and thought, well, that's what I want to be. I'm not that person at the moment and I want to be that person and I should be that person. I have so much to be thankful for in my life. So that one small decision that was actually ultimately a massive decision was the key to this. And for me, that decision to say I am going to be a happy person was that positive mindset change. So instead of looking all the time and seeing all of the bad and annoying and terrible things that were happening around me, my brain started to focus on the good things. I started to look for the great things that were happening. And again, the positive psychology research is showing us, as is the neuroscience, that we can literally train our brains. Our brains are wired to find the negative. We as human beings are looking for the negative, and that's really to keep ourselves safe. That's needed in life. But if
being
you
a lawyer
do,
certainly doesn't help, because we take
no,
our negative,
completely.
our nature, and like heighten it.
Absolutely. One of the studies I looked at as part of my research was looking at the natural pessimism that exists in the legal fraternity. We have far more pessimists within the legal community than you do in the standard community. And pessimists, particularly at law school, do far better than optimists because they are naturally able to see all of the potential problems that are about to arise, which is exactly what you want in a lawyer. The problem with that mindset, though, of course, is not only can the pessimistic lawyer see all of the problems in their client's case, all they can often see is all of the pitfalls in their own life. So it is about just pausing and reminding yourself that, yes, this is a difficult thing, and yes, whatever it is that you're going through is challenging, but hang on, there's these other great things happening, and really trying to train your brain to jump first to the positive rather than first to the negative. So for me, that attitude and actively saying to myself, you are a lucky person, using gratitude practice, focusing on kindness, looking for the good in things, was an absolute key to me being able to say, you know what, yeah, there's still moments in my life where things are definitely not happy, don't get me wrong, but I now know how to train my brain to get myself out of that space.
It's not shocking, but it's so strange to hear you tell your story because it's so similar to my own. And for me, it was the same thing. I made a decision at one point that I was going to start to be a happy person. I read Gretchen Rubin's The Happiness Project.
Yes.
And
did you clean all your cupboards out?
I did.
Good.
And of course. But once I made that decision, it's crazy how far I've come in the last 3 years and how much easier it is for me to switch my brain to looking for the opportunities and to looking for the gratitude and looking for the light in the darkness. And I most recently noticed it after the election here in the US.
Oh, yes.
Which
yes.
It was my first election as a US citizen. And so I, being a now very optimistic person, assumed it was going to go the way I thought it was going to go and that all would be well.
Yes.
And have to admit, I really was I was sideways by it. It was really hit me hard, but then I was shocked by how quickly I bounced back.
Yeah.
Because I know there was a time when I would have dwelled for a really long time about this thing that I have no control over.
That's right.
And that I have to live with and I can't change. And a week later, I feel so much better. And I know that 3 years ago, I probably would have felt bad for the entire 4 years. Come out of it exhausted and been like, gosh, that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is such a good example. And I mean, I don't live in America, I live in Australia, but I know as your election was unfolding, my social media feed was just chocked full of commentary on this and exactly the sort of reaction that you were talking about. And I had that same reaction. And then I had to pause and go, it's not even your country, Clarissa. Why are you getting so emotional about this? And it is. And I did the same thing as you've done. At the end of the day, you can't change that. It is what it is. It'll be what it'll be. Come back to your own life. Come back to what circle of influence you do actually have and what good you can do in the world in your own way.
So the next thing that you have on your list is passion. And when you described it earlier, you said this doesn't have to be for your job. This could be in your own life. How do you go about finding that passion? Because I think often people feel like they've lost touch with that. And they don't even like the word passion or calling or all these buzzwords we use now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Passion
What do you think?
How do you do it, or how do you find it? Passion for me is the stuff that you can do where time just disappears and you don't even realize you're doing it. So everyone has something that they just love to do where they forget to eat, they forget to check their phone, they forget to do everything, and they just get consumed by whatever it is. Reading, for example, can be a passion for many people. Singing, musical instruments, hanging out with family and friends, whatever it is. And, many people have many passions. You don't just have to have one. Whatever it is, you've got to reconnect with it. You've got to find a way to work it into your everyday. Sometimes that can be really hard because if your passion is singing, you're probably not going to get to do that as you're filling in your billable timesheet. But if it is something like that and you're a bit like me, for me it's dancing, it's about going, you know what, I'm not feeling that great, putting the song on my iPhone and dancing for 3 minutes and having my team look at me like I'm a bit of a freak, but that's okay because I know it's going to make me feel happier. And I get that out of my system and then I can continue on. Everyone's different with this stuff, but everyone has a passion. And if you just pause and think about the stuff that you love to do, that just completely shuts your mind down, where you completely forget about everything else around you. It might be watching Netflix TV series for 8 hours. Whatever it is, you've got to do it.
I mean, I would push people to think a little bit harder if they think it's watching Netflix. Not that I see anything wrong with that, because I can binge TV watch like the best of them, but I think that may not fill you as much as kind of if you dig a little bit deeper.
Yes, I agree, but I'm just throwing it out there for anyone that needs a starting point.
I appreciate it as a starting point, and I just have faith in the listener that they really want to dig deep and find kind of deeply fulfilling passions. So I'm just going to put that out there as well. And so the next P you have for us is purpose and finding your purpose. Do you think this
go ahead. No, you go.
No, I was just going to ask if you think this is something that you find through work, or you kind of have always had and are working. I guess what I'm trying to say is the purpose something you create or something that's in you that you're just trying to dig out?
Yeah. Do you know, I don't know that I even have the perfect answer to that question. One of the things Simon Sinek is a speaker and an author on the notion of following your why. Yeah. And I think anyone that's confused about what is my purpose and why am I doing this and all of this stuff, he would have to be, for me, the place to go. And really digging through his work certainly helped me to get clearer on my why.
And you're referring to a book?
Yeah, his book. And, again, if you don't want to read a book, just look at there's a great TED talk. If you literally just go Simon Sinek, TED, something about why, you'll find it. Yeah. And it's, again, it's 15 minutes of your life that will never be wasted, and you'll get the general theme of what we're talking about. But I think purpose, again, can be very different for everybody. But one of the themes that I found in my research is that the lawyers that were certainly interested in the notion of happiness tended to have a purpose that sat around the idea of making a difference, making people's lives better in some way. Those sorts of themes kept coming out. And I speak to so many lawyers who say to me something like, I know it sounds really corny, but I really love that I get to make a difference in other people's lives. And they're not like shouting that from the rooftops with pride. They're sort of saying it like, I know I sound like a goose. But that is often the purpose that sits at the heart of what so many of us do. And I think that is something that we should actually be really proud of and be shouting from the rooftops, particularly on those days where your clients are perhaps not themselves seeing the value in what you're giving them, because they're not feeling that it's making any significant difference in their lives. But you as their lawyer are sort of thinking, well, I know that if we don't do whatever it is we need to do right now, the potential consequences for you are more significant than you could ever imagine. So coming back to that place and being able to say to yourself, there is a bigger reason why I do this work. There is something that brought me to this that is more than money or more than stature or whatever it is. And again, for any lawyer that I've spoken to that's interested in the notion of happiness, there is always something more, and it's working out what that is for you.
I am so happy to hear that people can find their purpose in the law, because I think often people lose that passion and that feeling of, I want to serve people. People come to me and they say, I went to law school because I thought I was going to change the world. And I don't even want to dismiss that. And I want to say, well, why don't you? Why don't you change the world? And they're like, well, I do corporate law. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start with the presumption that you can, and let's figure out how the law can serve you and serve your purpose, instead of figuring out where you are and why it's not good enough.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And there's
Right.
you just find these such passionate people who have these huge dreams. They're so smart. They're so committed. And somewhere along the line, they lose their connection to that.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because we take some of these, really spectacular human beings and they don't get to live to that potential. And I'm not sad for like society. I'm sad for them.
Yeah.
And for society because
Yeah, well, that was a big part of why I wrote the book that I ended up writing, because I sort of looked around and I thought there's all these great lawyers that are leaving law and setting up florists because they've just gone, I can't do this. And that can't be good for the profession, because it is often the lawyers that have a deep sense of empathy and kindness that are getting sort of whittled down and that are leaving. And I thought, well, that's no good for us if all of the kind, nice people are wandering away. What are we going to be left with? So it is, I think, about opening up that dialogue and allowing lawyers that do want to practice in a manner that is very human to find a way to do it and to make that okay. And again, some of our traditional stereotypes, particularly if you think of the show Suits right now, they do not promote this idea that you can be a kind, caring lawyer. In fact, a kind, caring lawyer is perhaps a weak lawyer in terms of a social stereotype. So I think it's rethinking that and repurposing that, enabling those of us that, particularly for me working in the divorce space, want to practice in an empathetic, dignified, kind way, enabling us to do that.
And I think that transitions really nicely into your last trait of making it about you and really bringing your whole self to your practice. And if what you bring is that kindness and that empathy and that kind of creative, different take on the law, you should bring that to the law, because that's kind of the gift you can bring to the profession.
Exactly. One of my mentors over here has this beautiful saying, no one is youer than you. And the minute you realize that your whole value sits in the fact that you are you. Yeah. No one has the same combination of life experiences and learnings that you have. So capitalize on that rather than trying to fit yourself to what you think you need to be. Be yourself, be comfortable with that, and work to your strengths is the other thing I say. Another one of our judges over here in a really powerful speech said something that I use all the time now, and that is, you're a person first and a lawyer second. And I think that's where the unhappy lawyer gets trapped very quickly. Everything is pumped into the career. Everything is about being a lawyer, and there is very quickly forgotten that actually I'm a person, and at some point this career will come to an end, and ideally I need an identity that is bigger than this. I need relationships in my life. I need to care about the people around me, and I need to remember that this is a career and I'm bigger than that. And I think that's something that the traditional practice of law, particularly in large institutions, doesn't necessarily foster. So if you're working all the time, weekends into the evenings, there's a pretty strong chance that your relationships are going to fracture at some point in time. And that is just not a good thing for any human being.
So what does your life look like now? What does your schedule look like? What is the ideal? I don't use the word work-life balance. I've moved into using work-life integration.
Yes, good. That's my phrase too.
Of course it is.
Yeah. My life is ridiculous. I am not a poster child for good, structuring. But that's me. Like I run a law firm, and I'm a mum, and I'm a wife, and I'm, a daughter, and I'm all of these things, a friend. And I've tried all sorts of different ways of structuring my life. And what I've learned is that no structure is actually best for me. And so what I mean by that is I take each day for what it is. I have a structure that achieves what I need today, and it'll be different tomorrow, and it'll be different on Saturday, and it's different every week. And I've just come to understand that that's what I need in my life. I have amazing support. So my husband, my parents, I have people that work with me that look after my daughter when I'm at work, and it is like this amazing team, and I'm so grateful for the people that make my life function. I somewhat jokingly, but not jokingly, describe myself that I feel at times like I'm J-Lo, like I'm this ridiculous pop star that actually doesn't earn the money that she does, nor look and sing the way she does. But I feel like I've got this entourage of humans that make my life function. And that's the reality, I think, for someone in my place to be able to be a business owner and a working mum and all of these things, you've got to have help. And I'm really grateful for the help that I have, because the people around me have sort of adapted to that same style of operating, which is, okay, what is needed this week, and let's create that this week, and then it's different next week. That works for me because I'm a pretty go with the flow, flexible person. Not everyone's like that. So, some of my friends have much more structured routines to their lives, and that works for them. And my message is, as it always is, work out what works for you. And if something's not working, then tinker with it and change it and see what difference something might make. And if it doesn't work, then tinker again.
I would even push lawyers to consider building more flow into their lives, because I think for a lot of type A personalities who've had structure, they think that is what they need. And so creating kind of space for nothing or space for whatever comes up can be really liberating, because once you get to the point where all of your time is scheduled, a week, a month, 6 months into the future, there's not really opportunity for kind of the magical moments of life.
Yes.
And the unexpected, because the unexpected just becomes something in the way of your plan.
So true.
I definitely would encourage people to, one of my favorite podcasts, Jess Lively, she does a lot of work on flow and creating flow and space for kind of following your gut and just doing what strikes your fancy and having that time set aside to do nothing or do whatever comes up. And lawyers, I think, could benefit a lot from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think even from a day-to-day practice perspective, like yesterday was the classic example for me. One of my team members was unwell. She was unable to come to work. She'd been working on a significant thing that needed to be with the client. That meant that I had to drop everything that I was hoping to achieve yesterday out the window to do this piece of work. And again, if I was like an anxious, stressed, I have to organize my life person, I probably would have had a meltdown at 10 a.m. yesterday. I've learned to just suck it up. Okay, I just have to get through whatever I have to get through today. The reality is I'm probably not going to get through everything. Know that now. Just focus on what you need to do right this minute and stop worrying about the 10 other things that you're not going to get to, because you'll do them tomorrow. You've done this long enough to know that it'll all get done eventually.
Yep. Well, this has been so fantastic. And before I let you go, I like to ask a couple of questions. First, I would love for you to share any resources that you would recommend for somebody who's starting on this journey to happiness that were really crucial to your development on your journey. As much as you dislike the word journey.
Journey. Now, I always get this wrong, but the University of Greater Good, and I think it's at Berkeley. Okay. But I always get so you've got two great centers over in the States where so much of the research around happiness is coming from. And if you literally Google University of Greater Good, I'm sure it's Berkeley, but if it's wrong, I apologize. And the other one is the Center for Healthy Minds. Both great places with just so many great helpful resources around happiness. The Berkeley University have a great online happiness course, which is just awesome, again, to really get you checking in with this stuff. They're probably two key resources that I found really helpful. I did also read Gretchen Rubin's book, The Happiness Project. Yes. Her podcast is cool. Once you start sort of searching, I guess in the same way you have a coma around happiness, you suddenly find all of these things around happiness because your mind is alive to it now. So there is a lot of writing and there is a lot of resources available on the issues.
And I mean, your book, when does your book come out?
Yeah, my book should be literally printed just before Christmas, which I'm really excited about. I'm just in the final stages at the moment of getting printing sorted and all of these great things that you do when you publish a book. So yeah, it should be out just prior to Christmas, and you can find that on my website, which is thehappyfamilylawyer.com.
I think that will be a wonderful resource for people, and I'm super excited to get my hands on that. So I hope that it all goes as planned and I can be digging into that in the new year.
Yes, I'm always a bit anxious when you say Christmas and then, the printer shuts down and next thing you know, it's February. So anyway, hopefully, fingers crossed.
So if there is one thing that you could say separates those lawyers who find happiness in their life from the ones who don't, what would you say that one thing is?
Only one thing. I think it is a mind space of opportunity and abundance as opposed to that mind space of negativity and limitation. So it is seeing the world from a place of opportunity. There's always something that I can be doing interestingly better, whatever it is. For me, it is that mindset.
And to think I almost got through an episode without the word abundance coming up.
Oh, sorry, I ruined it for you.
No, I didn't even notice, but it seems like it wasn't going to happen. It's so central to the mindset shift that it's not surprising it always comes up. It's been such a pleasure. What's the best way for people to connect with you and learn about what you're up to?
I guess through my website, thehappyfamilylawyer.com, but I am on pretty much every social media platform. I get a lot of joy out of social media in my life. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Is there anything else? I don't know. I'm on pretty much everything except for Snapchat. I can't work.
I was going to ask.
No, it's too hard. I can't do it. My daughter uses it for the cute little filter things, but other than that, I can't get my head around Snapchat.
Fair enough. I have all your links, so I'll include those in the show notes for people. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at Okoma, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!